Hey everyone, since posting my first thoughts video for Harvest Moon 1 World, you guys seem to like it, so I ended up working on one for Story of Seasons as well. The reason this video is late is because school is just getting ready to finish up, so I've been playing little bits here and there at a snail's pace. But I was able to play around 10 to 15 hours of gameplay, getting to at least Summer 1 in the game, so I feel like I've played a good amount of the game to warrant these as first thoughts. So if you're new to the channel, the way I format my review videos are a little different than usual. Since this is more like a vent series than a formal review show, I wanted to split this in two ways. First, I kind of just list stuff about the game in specific categories that include, but are not limited to, story, gameplay, characters, and unique gameplay mechanics. That way, if you just wanted to get a feel about what the game has to offer before you buy it, then you can stop there before we head on into my opinion corner, where I go through each of them, but with more of my personal thoughts or critiques, but they're more so just personal critiques, and overall I don't feel like these take too much away from the game's enjoyment, so these are mainly just there for me to go through each mechanic or part of the game in more detail. You can use these to maybe grasp a better idea on each category, or just listen to a different perspective or a cold take or something. You can follow the video as it goes through each category in the description if you want as well. Timestamps and titles included. Since this is a very early thoughts video, I'll only cover stuff I found early on, so if there's anything I missed, please let me know in the comments, and I'll cover it in my video covering my second look through of the game. Also, one final thing. This is actually my second channel where I throw a bunch of extra content I don't see fitting on the main channel. So if you subscribe to this one, don't be alarmed if my Minecraft Survival Games episode 46 pops up and you recommend it tomorrow. On my main channel, you can expect stuff like highlights, such as my week 1 World gameplay footage. So that's there if you want to see more farming simulator stuff from me. Alright, with that being said, and without further ado, let's get started with the rundown. So far, there hasn't been too much story involved, if at all. You move on to your grandfather's old farm, and then once you get there, the only other main piece of progression you'll really have is doing quests for the town mayor and handing in materials to further the town's development. The only other piece of progression in this game is to further expand your farmland, which is actually huge and pretty fun to run around and explore, looking at all the rundown buildings and then marking the little requirements you need to build them back up. It's a really neat touch and makes you want to explore the area even further. The story in this game is about as apparent as more of the older Harvest Moon titles made by Marvelous, so what I mean by this is like it gives more focus on the farming and other gameplay elements related to farming. Speaking of, I noticed this game takes a lot of inspiration from Stardew Valley. Something new they introduced to this game is a skill system. Just like in Stardew Valley, you can level up your skills by doing specific tasks around your farm or the village. However, compared to Stardew Valley, in Pioneers of Olive Town, there are more immediate results. For example, by chopping down more trees, the amount of A button clicks you'll need to chop down a tree will decrease, or the amount of wood you get from the tree will increase. Other skill perks include being able to plant multiple seeds at once after you've planted them enough times. This gives a really fun incentive to want to keep doing more of these chores so that your level goes higher and you continue to upgrade your perks. This also brings me to my next point. The game also goes back to its older roots a lot of times. I'm not sure if this is because of the Friends of Mineral Town remake or something, but they went back to the 1 seed per 1 crop formula, the tried and true formula since the split with Natsume. And mining is back to being inside of a cave going down floor by floor, another tried and true formula since the split. Though the mining is a little different, which I find pretty cool. The more of the farmland you unlock, you can also unlock different caves which have much stronger ores and minerals that you couldn't get previously, which adds to some fun progression. There are also some extra things, like you can hit a gopher popping up with your hammer, and they'll give you like different awards every time you do it. There isn't an elevator system like in Stardew unfortunately, but this new system works pretty well as far as resource gathering is concerned. Along with the skill system, there's also a crafting system similar to Stardew Valley's, where you open up your menu and are able to obtain stuff such as the lumber maker, which processes wood into lumber, and later on there are more things like jewel processors, so you can take your raw jewels from mining expeditions and process them into the refined version to sell for much more. But that's not all. There are actually minigames in this game as well. There's a memory game where you have to dig up anything that aren't beanstalks before the time runs out, so it's a pretty good time waster if you're tired of the main campaign. And there's just still so much more that I want to gloss over real quick so the script doesn't get too long, because there's honestly a lot of gameplay stuff, such as a bulletin board quest system, a picture system, and a museum system similar to Stardew Valley. Overall, this game includes a ton of gameplay elements, which makes for a pretty good time. The characters in this game have a little more to them than Friends of Mineral Town, but not as much emphasis as any of Marvelous's previous works. They have their heart events after every heart, which is really convenient and much easier to track, and even some of the other villagers outside of marriage candidates have heart events, which is really cool for those who want to learn more about the other members of this town. Some events start up a little slower than others, but I want to keep this part of the review at least as spoiler-free as I can, so I'll go over this in the opinion corner. Some festivals seem to also include some special dialogue if you ask to do some with another marriage candidate, if you're close to them, that is. Just like in Trio of Towns, but unfortunately I wasn't able to get any footage of that in the first month. Fortunately, this game has festivals! Yes, I'm aware One World has festivals now. I'm gonna cover that in my second look video, don't worry. So far, I've only been able to try 2 festivals, but the way they handle it is pretty cool. Some of the festivals are more dialogue-oriented, and some are gameplay-oriented. And for one of the festivals in the game, it required me to have a pet to participate. But even if you don't own a pet, you could rent one from the villager hosting the event. So I thought the way they handled the gameplay-oriented festivals so far were pretty neat. For example, in the Pet Promenade, I went to rent this little kitty. Together, you and me, kitty, we're gonna get far together! Oh yeah! Look at that little kitty go! What? How come they got their boost and I didn't? What? Wait, where's my indicator? How is this fair? Nah, frick Mikey, I was robbed. Okay, that's it for my slightly unopinionated version of the review. Before we move on to the opinion corner though, leaving a like helps this channel a ton. A like helps a video get put into the algorithm for other people to find this video and to maybe enjoy as well. Wait, is this the part where I'm supposed to ask to subscribe? Well, okay then. Subscribing also helps. The opinion corner! In this portion of this review, which is more like event at this point, I'm gonna go through all of the game's elements featured above and throw in my thoughts and opinions in the mix. Most of these can be taken with a grain of salt, as these are just nitpicks I had with the game, and I personally don't feel like they take away from the experience too much, depending on how you play, that is. Coming up from Trio of Towns, yeah, there was no way this video was getting away with not mentioning it at least once. It makes sense that this game would be on a much smaller scale, but I was disappointed with how little lore the game's village had. After all, it had been pioneered, so it would be cool if there was a little bit of development on that, or a way that the player could feel more involved, sort of like the town rank quests in Trio of Towns, where after helping the town little by doing stuff like doing quests for people or shipping produce in the bin, aimed towards specific towns, you would be able to directly help out the town with more explicit results. It then feels more like a community event and helps for the immersion rather than it making it feel like it's just another minor upgrade, such as the new town floors or the town hall upgrade. Even though the new West Town stage or the Lulu Colo kitchen are also very minor upgrades, there was this charm that made achieving these more satisfying than simply throwing materials at a bulletin board and then seeing it happen the next day. Postscript note, I feel like the reason I feel this way is because there was this sort of ranking with how close you were to the town. So like E is like a beginner entry level, and then S is like you are like close friends with everyone there, which I thought was really cool. Okay, back to the script. The game takes a more chill, laid-back tone to its atmosphere, which I think is fine, but after something like the father-son squabble plotline at the start of this game's predecessor, I couldn't help but wish there was just a little more than just, oh, my grandpa has a whole-ass town with a vacant farm he used to own? Sick. Honestly, I have no real qualms with the gameplay. Everything feels very clean with the skill system, crafting menu, and even the farming. While I now prefer the 1 seed for 9 crop system the first 2 Story of Seasons games had, going back to their tried and true formula is hardly a downgrade at all. It barely changes anything gameplay-wise, so this is just another very minor preference nitpick. Maybe mining is a little repetitive now, unlike Trio of Towns where only 1 town had 4 mining spots. Very unrepetitive, Scrags. But maybe I felt this way because after reaching the end of the first mine, I got a little event rewarding me for getting to the end. And then I tried going for the second mine, and then I just went down, and down, and down, and honestly, I was questioning if there even was an end. I also thought not being able to save in the mines to prevent save scumming was a little fun touch I found funny. While I never really use it in other games that don't have Natsume and Seeds of Memories on the title screen, I thought this was an honorable mention in case people were hoping to be able to do it in this game, in case this changes your opinion or something, I don't know. But overall, really clean stuff. I'm gonna rant about this for the next 5 minutes. I'm a little confused with what they wanted to achieve with this roster of characters. Some of the development is pretty good, such as Lynn's heart events, which go through genuine character depth. And I'm happy this was the case since she was one of the characters I was looking forward to learning about. And then in comparison, we have Reina. Now, minor spoilers for the first 4 heart events. Skip to this timestamp if you want. Her heart events just give weird mixed messages. On one hand, they go over her enthusiastic party girl attitude along with how passionate she is about her craft, which I think is a fun character trait. But the first heart event is just, oh, I can't read this handwriting, and then the second event... Okay, the second event is where things get weird. Reina is passionate about this exhibit that she's been planning on hosting for like a long time. Meanwhile, Gloria comes in, the owner of the museum, and says, actually, you can't host your silly little exhibit because I said so. And then Reina just slumps and goes, oh no, that sucks. And then the event just ends. That was a heart event? It seems like a pretty important plot point that feels like it would be continued later on, but it's dropped in such a jokey tone that it leaves you, well, confused. Maybe that was the point where it's sort of like, oh no, what's gonna happen next? I need to know. But honestly, it just feels really abrupt. And if you've seen my One World First Thoughts video, you'll know how I feel about unconcluded stories and heart events. And you know what? It actually does get continued. In her third heart event, Reina then tries to get over it by hosting the after party she planned on doing after her exhibit, which shows her perseverance and her passion for what she likes, and I think that's great for a character. But then Gloria comes in again and says, actually, Reina, you can't host a party for an exhibit that, doesn't exist! Because I said so! Like, what? Fortunately, your heart events start picking up on the 4th one where the player and Reina actually interact, but even then, it took 4 heart events to get there? This brings me to one of my main gripes with the game. Some of the characters are just straight up jerks. I loved every single character in Trio of Towns and even Friends of Mineral Town. They all felt so charming in their own way and had personalities and character arcs I could totally get behind. So it hurts that a lot of these characters are either jerks or straight up villains at this point. Post-edit Scrags here just wanted to like add something on top of that, because like I'm aware that like you can't just like every character, that's and like that's completely fine. I think my main issue is that like for characters like Gloria, where she's supposed to be like this villain in Reina's like heart event storyline, it just makes it that much weirder that this is a villager that you can talk and give gifts to, and I assume has story events of her own. Maybe they'll like go why she's so bitter and stuff, but like after that I kind of just don't want to even see. Like the exhibit, maybe benefit of the doubt, maybe she was just busy with something else that day, or maybe she wasn't sure that Reina would be responsible enough to like do it. But the after party, like that's like her own thing. I don't know why she's so concerned about that. Like in comparison, we have Morris or whatever his name is in Stardew Valley. He's the big like antagonist, he's Joja Corp, and for the players he's like the punching bag. And there it makes sense because he was meant to be a character you disliked. Meanwhile, Gloria feels like just a character you're supposed to dislike for Reina's plotline, and I don't know why they did something like that. I guess another similar thing I can compare it to is maybe Penny and Pam, where in one of the events, spoilers by the way, Pam is like, oh my god, what are you doing in my house? But at least it's kind of like explained that she just wants to save face and she's genuinely like embarrassed of being in that position, and then she like admits that it sucks that her daughter is in the situation that she put herself in, and in there that's just explained. It's explicit, it's there, and I'm pretty sure like if my memory serves correctly, it's in the exact same event, so you kind of like know both sides of the story. But for Gloria, she's just strutting in like, actually, you can't do anything. Ooh! And that's probably just my biggest gripe with how they handled that. Minor spoilers for Laura's first heart event. Here's a timestamp if you want to skip through it. Laura's first heart event involves Jacopo, the mayor's son, to fetch a wallet for you. He just cheers you on in the back and then only does something once the player starts drowning. Laura comes in to save the player, and to save face, Jacopo just scolds the player for drowning in like that. Eventually he gets busted by Lara and gets scolded himself for getting someone else to solve their problem and almost drowning for it. For real, how are there 2 characters that act like this? Oh my god, it all makes sense now. The characters aren't that hard to get heart levels with either. I was able to get Lynn and Reina above 3 hearts in the first month, which honestly, it's just personal preference at this point, but I just felt like the pacing was a little fast. Personally, I wish Marvelous just kept doing what they did best with their characters and their stories, which was just stuff a bunch of content involving them. Trio of Towns had a ton of extra events with characters I had only really talked to because I wanted to be a courteous neighbor. But the events made me see them in a completely different light and changed my entire perspective of them. I started appreciating their personalities and their characters as a whole. On top of that, they absolutely spoil the player with the events you have with the marriage candidates. It feels like a really natural immersion into the game as you genuinely feel immersed into the world and in turn your character. A lot of people can argue that the friend points gap is way too long and far away in Trio of Towns, which I honestly completely agree with, but actually that's what I like about it, as I feel the pacing is that much more realistic. Honestly, at this point, the next Scraggy Talks video is just going to be around on why I love Trio of Towns so much. Hey wait, that's actually a pretty good idea. I don't usually talk about graphics since I don't usually take that into consideration, since for the most part, I'm just playing for the characters, or the gameplay, or both. I mean, as long as your game isn't just blinding single color textures, I'll probably play your game anyway. No, but seriously, since the game is most likely, well, the actual game I'm talking about, unless I started pulling from the Smash gameplay folder again, oh my god. I don't really know what else to say besides the UI, character models, and assets look nice. This is probably the only thing I don't have strong opinions about, so we can move on to the next section. A few things I thought were a little annoying, but again, I don't feel like they take away from the game's overall experience. The first is the loading zone between the town and the farmland. One of the comments on my pre-release thoughts video mentioned this as a concern, and yeah, it was a little long. Especially since you're going to be moving from here to there a lot in the game, this did get to me after a bit. Though it is important to mention that Marvelous is, and has actively looked into it for their most recent update. There's probably a comparison going on the screen right now just to show like the difference in times. Another thing is that the characters to me feel a little lifeless. The dialogue in this game is very basic and simple, and if you shuffled around the dialogue to anyone else in the game, most of the time, it would make sense. There's just not that much personality in the dialogue, and as a result, I've ended up just going to town, talking to the 4 characters I liked, and then heading back to the farm to chop more trees down for the rest of the day. There's also this feature where to enter and exit every area in the game, you have to press the A button. Sometimes it takes me a while to even realize I'm not in the loading screen because I'm just so used to loading zones. Though this is probably my smallest nitpick with the game, as it's not the worst thing in the world. A lot of things in this game, like storage boxes or all the processors, take so much unnecessary space on your farm. So there's so many gaps in between, and it feels a lot less compact than Stardew's one tile per processor thing. And before I end off this opinion corner section, I do want to bring up that a lot of my gripes with the game or minor nitpicks are actually being fixed right now, or have already been fixed in updates. This is really cool to see Marvelous actively listening to feedback and then acting upon it, and I'm glad I'm not the only one who felt this way about some of the things in the game. I think this is really healthy for the game, and I hope Marvelous keeps this up. Just really nice to see. And this marks the end of the video. Personally, I feel like this game took a lot of focus and emphasized on gameplay a lot more than story and characters, which, if you like that sort of thing, is great, but this game hasn't really clicked with me, at least not yet. It sucks that both farming sims I was looking forward to in March couldn't really scratch the itch in the right spot, but again, if you enjoyed either One World or Pioneers of Olive Town, don't listen to me. I don't want to take the enjoyment of these games out of you. Both of these games have their own sort of charm that I can appreciate, and a lot of good things going for them that I enjoyed. Again, these are very early thoughts, so my opinion is subject to change, which is why I'm planning on making another video of my second look of the game in the future. If you enjoyed listening to me talking about farming simulators, you can subscribe to this channel if you want, since, well, now I have this Trio of Towns video in the works, and I'm probably going to want to talk about Rune Factory 5 before that comes out in Japan. And if you also like shorts and little side content, then you can subscribe to this one. But again, this is my second channel, so if you want to see more variety content from me, more developed and edited stuff, well, my main channel is also in the description and in the outro card if you want to see less shorts and side content and more, well, like, high edited, jump cut highlights sort of stuff. And again, if there's anything I missed or something you just want me to look for in this game in particular in the future, or if you just wanted to ask about my thoughts on something in the game I forgot to mention here, please let me know in the comments below. I really like to read all your comments, and it's really fun to see all the different perspectives of the games I talk about. And with all that being said, thank you so much for watching. Justice for Reina.